We have 3 individuals who will be speaking to the proposed contract with Dr. Kim Lewis that appeared as item G75 on the June 4th, 2018 information agenda. And we'll start with Ms. Cece Canfield.
Hello, my name is Cece Canfield. I retired from Tulsa Public after working 31 years with the district. I worked as a speech pathologist in various schools and a coordinator lead for speech pathologists for over 10 of those 31 years. Janice Graham, lead school psychologist, and I led the related service groups, not with threats, mean-spirited statements, vulgar language, or profanities towards the group, but the core values the district made public as important: team, character, joy, equity, and excellence. We were both fully staffed and able to serve the district students with the highest quality of services. The request tonight is that you vote not to renew Dr. Kim Lewis's contract. If you feel it's necessary to hire a consultant, hire one that knows how to lead and demonstrate the skills necessary to unify the departments and reignite the high level of service to our students that TPS is used to receiving. Dr. Lewis's leadership is typified by bullying, mean-spirited threats, sarcasm, profanity, and divisive tactics. What is her history of successful consultation contracts without early termination? And if terminated early, why was that? Was the TPS Special Ed Department set up for failure at a cost of nearly $400,000 so as to allow her to continue to renew costly contracts? If you vote yes to renewing this contract for $185,000, you will also be spending at least another $500,000 to $800,000 for outsourcing speech therapy and recouping maybe $100,000 in Medicaid money. This results in a net loss of $215,000 to $515,000 and possibly higher. This situation was allowed to occur while Dr. Lewis was helping the special ed department with its leadership roles. Why is it not possible for existing special ed administration and new leads to help the related service persons develop metrics and lead them without the threats, without the demeaning statements about their work ethics and the rude, sarcastic statements? If you asked for a vote of confidence in her skills, you would receive a resounding no vote of confidence by anyone who has worked with her the last 2.5 years. Instead, vote of confidence vote for the related service people that have dedicated years and years of service to the district and allow them to develop metrics under the guidance of existing ESC staff and the new leads that demonstrate positive character, joy, and the true meaning of team. I would like to address the 3 areas of concern that are directly opposite of the 3 of the 5 core values set forth by this board: character, team, and joy. Why does the district profess that these core values are important and yet continue to support someone that does not exhibit them? Under team, the leadership style exhibited by Dr. Lewis is hostile and divisive. Teams are pitted against each other and are under constant threat. The leadership under Dr. Lewis's direction has created an environment that is no longer desirable for related service people to continue their contract and have left not for more money, but for work environments that are pleasant or that have student needs as the main concern and not billing Medicaid to fulfill a $1 million promise. Character. The character values demonstrated by Dr. Lewis include sarcasm, bullying tactics, profanity, foul language, and rude behavior. Dr. Lewis has made a promise to the district that with her guidance, the district could recoup $1 million. This promise is unrealistic and is pushing groups to bill for services when they are understaffed and unable to serve the students adequately. This promise is also based on the Maryland Medicaid rules and not the Oklahoma Medicaid rules. She has successfully zapped the joy from related service providers by forcing them to continue to attempt to bill with very limited results. At the zenith of billing Medicaid approximately 8 to 10 years ago, we brought in $400,000. This year alone, I figure that over 5,000 man-hours have been spent to recoup approximately $50,000 to $60,000, roughly one person's contract. I would have to say that's not worth the time being taken away from serving and working with students. In the past 2.5 years, Dr. Lewis has promised hiring people that are not ready to lead the second largest special ed district in the state. But with these recommendations, she has successfully set up the continued need to have her on a contract renewal. The director for related services last year opened the first day of school with nobody will get higher than a 3 on a TLE, and you're just going to be real lucky if you don't get a PDP. Let's say no to continually renewing her contract and creating a bigger and bigger loss of valuable personnel to other districts.
Ms. Linda Geyer.
Hi, I'm Janice Graham, and I retired a year ago from Tulsa Public Schools, and the last place I want to be on a Monday night in June is speaking at a board meeting. But for the people that you just heard from right there, we've come out of our retirement to come and address you for them. They've tried to speak for themselves through TCTA, through talking to direct supervisors. To let you know who I am, in my 33-year career in Tulsa Public Schools, I was a school psychologist for 22 of the years. For 7 of those years, I was the lead. As the lead, we built such a strong school psych staff that we were able to recruit psychologists from outlying districts such as Broken Arrow, Skytook, Union, Bixby. Our group was highly respected in the state of Oklahoma for the way in which we identified disabilities in children who were bilingual, as well as our ability to identify children with autism on the spectrum and how to address those needs. Because of that, people came and became school psychologists with this group. I'm the person that actually interviewed those people and asked them to come. And since Dr. Lewis has come to our district and provided services, we're seeing people leave. What I will tell you, I do not want you to renew her contract. I'll tell you my story. I personally have observed her to be a bully. She uses profanity, targets individuals with differences of opinion. She's created a toxic work environment in the special education department. In collaborative groups, she would often spout out, "That's why I get paid the big bucks," when she would insist that her opinion was the most valid. She has created an environment of fear and retaliation. Due to this treatment, TPS no longer has fully related service staff providers such as a school psychologist and speech language pathologists that sit behind me. As a matter of fact, you lost a school psychologist today. They're very hard to find. These are people that have master's plus degrees. They have licensures and certification that are very difficult to find, and they're some of the most highly qualified people you will ever find in Tulsa Public Schools. Unfortunately, I was one of those people that was targeted. And this is the part that really saddens me, because I had both formal and informal conversations with my direct supervisor, Greg James. Some were more formal because I was being given PDPs, job targets, whatever you want to call them. This was done in the presence of Patty Ferguson, who was there to represent me as a TCTA representative, Kim Hendricks, who is my OEA representative, Bill Napsker observed them. I reached out to Dr. Pauline Harris, who's the Human Rights Director for the district, and nothing happened for me. I needed to leave. It was my time. I retired, and I'm doing great. But when there's an injustice like this going on, I feel like I need to step up. I've gone. I'm certified as a psychologist and a teacher, a special ed teacher. They're really hard to find. Now I'm a realtor. I've been flipping houses because of the teacher walkout. I'm now a candidate for the House of Representatives. So I love what you were talking about. So what I want to say to the board is I'm stepping up, hopefully to go to the Capitol, to do what needs to be done for education in the funding realm and with teacher pay. But what I ask of you is to listen to your employees. There is a vote of no confidence put together by all the related service providers. You know, why didn't people listen to me here? Why aren't people listening to Patty Ferguson? But I think you're hearing that we are saying that this is going to be very detrimental if you renew Dr. Lewis's contract.
Ms. Linda Geyer.
Hello. First of all, I want to say thank you for pushing the pause button on renewing this contract, removing it from the approval agenda. You listened, and we all appreciate that. I am Linda Geyer. I retired last year as well. I was a coordinator in the Office of Student and Family Support Services. In my 8 years with the district, I served as the PBIS coordinator, that stands for Positive Behavior, Interventions, and Supports, and eventually worked with Kathy Siebold and the Boston Consulting Group to detail a plan to assist schools in creating tiered student support systems and a data system that would measure and identify needs and progress in 5 areas: behavior, academics, social emotional development, health and wellness, and family and community involvement. Having more than 10 years' experience in leading schools and districts in the implementation of tiered support systems, I knew this was important, cutting-edge work that would put Tulsa Public Schools on the map nationally. Unfortunately, I was a person who voiced opinions and ideas that did not fully align with those of Kim Lewis, which would ultimately bring my career with TPS to an abrupt end. When she was first hired as a consultant for TPS, she worked solely with the Office of Exceptional Student Support. Our paths crossed at various meetings, and I respectfully disagreed with her on a couple of important issues. In the spring of 2017, the announcement was made that Kim Lewis would be involved in my department as well. Her first task was to give each person on the team 15 minutes of her time to discuss our work. She boasted that she would be able to determine each person's skill and will based on that brief conversation. Imagine 42 years of experience in the field of behavior at classroom, district, and state levels, and I was to be evaluated, in a sense, by someone who I had disagreed with and who was willing to give me only 15 minutes of her time. Her reputation preceded her. By this time, everyone knew how she felt about and dealt with people who disagreed with her. When I showed her the work that Kathy Siebold and I had developed, she refused to look at it and literally tossed that work across the table without question or any sort of discussion to understand the work to which I devoted myself, nights and weekends included. I received my pink slip and was told I could interview for any position. The position I was best suited for was the newly created MTSS, Multi-Tiered Systems of Support Coordinator position. But Kim was sitting in on those interviews. I knew from her attitude and actions during our meeting it would have been pointless. When I left, I was replaced by 4 people. Yes, 4 people. 2 people who are not familiar with tiered support systems are now in charge of learning about MTSS and rolling it out. Let me emphasize, I was super qualified and I had a cutting-edge plan in hand. Yet I was pushed out and replaced by 4 people who knew nothing about the roles they were assigned, and this was all based on Kim Lewis's recommendations and actions. I have moved on, and I'm very happy to be an independent consultant and behavior support specialist. However, I share my story to give insight on what Kim Lewis is like in the workplace and how her actions have thrown district efforts into chaos and set progress back significantly. Believe me, there are others with similar stories, and the stories are continuing today because her caustic approach remains the same. In the Tulsa world, she is quoted as saying she has learned a lot and that she'll take the feedback to heart. But I have 2 responses. First of all, she's already been paid $309,000, and this is a $185,000 contract that's being offered. These are not beginning salaries. For that amount of money, we have the right to expect a professional who doesn't need to learn lessons in common human decency and respect for others. Second, as Maya Angelou once said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. It's time to say enough. She's paid with donor fees, but that's no excuse for keeping her on contract. And if there's a philanthropist in listening in any way, shape, or form, I want to say thank you for all you do to support Tulsa schools.
Ms. Geyer, your time's up. I want to thank all of you for sharing your thoughts this evening and for your patience and staying till the end of the meeting and being here to comment.
Yes, thank you, President Schreiber. I have a question on E4, the Kim Lewis consulting contract. I've spent a lot of time looking into this item and asking a lot of questions, but also trying to understand the strategic direction of the district in the Exceptional Student Support Services Department. And I've learned a whole lot of things. I wanted to share a little bit of that before I lead up to my question, but so some of the changes have been gathering data that helps us ask important questions, and some of those questions are like, are students with disabilities being suspended due to behaviors they have due to their disability? And can some students with disabilities who are currently placed in self-contained classrooms experience larger success if they were placed in inclusive classrooms? And so all of this data seems really helpful to help us see where we need to improve and to then track our performance. And there have been a lot of other changes too that I've learned about. And I know Dr. Lewis has helped the district implement all of the above and more, but I'm just wondering, and it's a question to district staff, isn't it time that we build internal capacity to do this work and move away from needing external consulting contracts?
The answer is absolutely yes, and that is really the intention of bringing in extra support. When we have areas of work in the district like special education, in which we have for a very long time had systems, policies, practices that have led us to a point where we're not serving students and families as well as we could have. It means that we can benefit from having extra help and extra support and expertise that has seen how this can work in places around the country. It's not about the people in our organization. It's about the district's responsibility to improve and change the system. One of the challenges that we've seen is that we have, because we did a reorganization, there's been a lot that has happened during that time. We've had a change in the executive director, changes in the directors, and so forth. And so it means that we need to make sure that we're, when we bring on Robin Emerson, for example, who's on tonight's agenda, that she's going to need that extra support. So I would actually ask our deputy superintendent to weigh in more on that, if you'd like.
Absolutely. I would anticipate that, given what we're focused on as we move into year 3 of support, there's been a lot of groundwork built. For example, I've spent some time with the special education coordinators learning about the progress monitoring process. They call it STAT. That was a process that didn't exist before. They've now worked with Greg James and Dr. Lewis. Cheryl Henry is another key player in the conversations to build out the metrics that we need to look at and to learn a process by which that data can be reviewed. Team has made a lot of progress. There's still some support in that particular area to continue forward. We would not anticipate continued support of this level with Dr. Lewis in future years. The whole point, as Dr. Giss mentioned, to bring in outside support is to build the capacity internally. I think a great example is with TNTP and our instructional quality reviews. So this past year, TNTP certified, I'm going to look at Danielle, 10 of our internal staff in a very rigorous process to be able to lead that without TNTP support. They're continuing to help us this year certify another cohort of folks so that we have enough people internally to carry out that process in a rigorous way and to train others in a rigorous way so that we can continue to do it on our own, because we've built not only the skills of individuals but the processes and the structures needed. Another example would be some work that we did with service culture. We had a small contract with an external group to bring a training called Achieving Service Excellence. We trained 12 people, I believe it is, internally. They're certified to be trainers now, and they're actually in the process of running a number of sessions that district team members can come to. They've trained upwards of 90 people at this point in time. I believe the board's going to receive an update on this in your weekly bulletin, and we'll be running sessions through October. So it's an example of external expertise came in, helped us build some of our muscle and structure. We don't need them anymore because we have some of the expertise internally.
In the original proposal was for the contract for $180,000, and I noticed on the agenda item that that's been reduced. What will we be getting if this contract is approved for that reduced amount?
So two things there. We went back and looked at the number of on-site versus kind of off-site technical assistance hours. We moved to reduce the number of on-site days as we worked with Robin Emerson, understood her needs, and anticipating kind of where the management team is, recognized that we could do some of what we were attempting to do and be more cost-effective by transitioning out of as many on-site days to reduce travel, et cetera, and to increase the number of hours that Dr. Lewis is available to provide technical assistance via WebEx, et cetera. Can I make one more statement there as well, Board President Schreiber? Based upon questions from the Teaching and Learning Committee and from board leadership, we went back to clarify in the rationale what we meant by areas of more inclusive opportunities, better accountability for services documented on the IEPs, and we're trying to be much more clear on specifically who Dr. Lewis is working to build capacity in the form of the management team and the direct support to the management team in exceptional student services as well as family and student support services.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall.
Dr. Lewis has been in the district now for 2.5 years at $185,000 per year as a consultant. The consultant's job for me would be that that person would come in and build a structure, a plan as to how to make our district run efficiently and effectively. And in doing that would create an environment and a process that those within our district would be able to carry on. And I would think that after 2.5 years, that would be enough time that we would already have people in our district that could carry on, and that we wouldn't need to pay $160,000 for her consulting, because we should have people that are capable and prepared, effective, and ready to take the baton and to lead. And if we don't, after 185 times 2, then her services have not been effective, and they have not been what our district was supposed to be getting for our money. And we have not been good stewards. And we don't need to continue to put money back into this same process, because that's what we would be doing. We would be investing another $160,000 into what we've already been doing. And maybe we need to seek out something else other than what we've already been doing. It would be a poor investment.
So there are some consultants who come in and they help you develop a plan. There are some consultants who come in and they do training or train the trainer, and I think that Deputy Shannon gave some good examples of that. And there are some folks who come in and they do a little bit of all of that. In this instance, Dr. Lewis came in the first year for a small portion of the year and did really an analysis of our performance and helped us to identify the areas, the very significant areas in which we as a district, as a system, and again, this is not about people, everyone in our system who does this work does it because they believe and want to serve kids, and they're doing what the system has set up for them to do. So that's really important. But our system was not, and still in many ways is not, serving kids and families in this area the way that we need to. So that beginning part was about setting that forward. And then it's about putting the plan in place. And then in this instance, it's about coaching and assistance with implementation. So I would totally agree with you that ideally, and we will get to the place where we no longer need the services of someone like Dr. Lewis. But I think that one of the things that's really different about some of the examples that Deputy Shannon gave in this instance is that, coming in and helping folks to learn how to use a new tool and then training them on using that new tool and then they implement it, versus in a situation where we have many years, perhaps decades, of a school district, of a system that has not served and does not have the policies, the practices, the structure, the communications, the design, the way in which we are serving kids with special needs, that we're not doing that the way that we need to do. It's a much more complex area of consulting than the kinds of examples that Deputy Shannon gave, which I think are important examples because it demonstrates that we do recognize that that's the role of consultants. But this is a very different situation. These are very complex situations, and we have in our district we have a very new still executive director of this work. We also have a new director who's on the agenda for tonight, who is a very experienced principal and a background in special education, but will be brand new to the position, and will be hiring the director of related services as well. So we have people who are going to need that continued help for the implementation of the plan and the coaching and assistance, which is what the contract lays out. I also think it's really important, and one of the things that we've shared with the board, with board leadership especially, are the successes that we've seen in the time that Dr. Lewis has been helping us. They're significant. We've done significant work to serve kids better. So for example, we in the 16-17 school year, we suspended almost 2,000 students whose behavior had a relationship to their disability. This is completely not acceptable, but it's a practice in our district. It's something that we're not good at doing. We don't give support and direction to our schools for what should happen instead of that. We don't make sure that people even know how to understand what is and is not related to a child's needs. And so again, this is not about people doing the wrong thing. This is about a system that doesn't have what it needs to have in place. That number has now been reduced by more than 30%. So there are absolutely successes that we've seen that are a direct result of the support that we've had, the assistance with the plan that was put into place, the implementation and the coaching that's been happening.
Ms. Keller?
Thank you. Dr. Gist, all of that being said, and I think Deputy Shannon, maybe you mentioned, but to be clear, you do not anticipate this contract going beyond this year? Is that the plan?
I would not say that I anticipate that. I would say that it would not go beyond this year. I can tell you that I am very confident that it will not be at this level. And in fact, originally we expected that this year would begin the ramp down, but that was before we've had, we have someone on leave and a brand new person coming in, and so that changed, which is why the original plan for that ramp down shifted this year, but we absolutely are confident that we will transition out. I don't feel confident making a commitment to you that this will be the last year, but I am confident that it will not be work at this level, and you can weigh in on that if you want.
And I would just say to the last point, we expected the contract to decrease this year until there were a number of transitions on the management team in Exceptional Student Services, including Executive Director Greg James being out on extended medical leave. And that is why Chief Fletcher made a recommendation to increase it. So, over the years, I believe in 16, 17, which is when Dr. Lewis was supporting us with building out the plan, looking at the appropriate structure for Exceptional Student Services. Her contract that year was approximately $170,000. If I recall, I don't have everything right in front of me. Last year, it was around $135,000, and again, expected to be much less this year until the things beyond our control, right, with people's health and others making choices to take different positions. So to Dr. Gist's point, we would not expect a contract of this amount, given the work that's being done to stabilize the management team. It would be much less in the future year.
Ms. Marshall. Regarding the successes under Dr. Lewis, Dr. Decker and I know, and the rest of the board has asked a lot of questions based on the feedback that we've gotten. And I think one of the things you maybe mentioned, Ms. Shannon, was something regarding the plan that comes from the state and how we measure against that and the changes that have been made there. And I wondered if you could describe that in a little bit more detail from prior years to what it looks like now.
Sure. I think at the heart of that is building out a solid progress monitoring system. So each year, and it's interesting because the state there are approximately 20 indicators. So if you go back a few years, the indicators varied a little bit. And the report we get from the state's very delayed. So it's really important to have a progress monitoring system in place that's built around those compliance indicators so that you know in real time how you're doing, and we can support schools in the development of our teams. So that's the STAT process. It's a progress monitoring process. So we went from not having a solid data-driven process to make decisions and really understand what was happening across our programs and within the quality of our programs, to having a clear set of internal indicators. The team is continuing to build those out, but they're based upon the state compliance indicators. And then meeting regularly. I believe that the management team meets every 2 weeks, if I recall, and they focus on a specific set of those indicators. So, they don't look at all 20 every time, but they pull up where they believe we have the most work to do. So this past year, they really focused on disproportionality in suspensions of students with disabilities. And Dr. Gish shared some of the progress that's been made there. They also look at it's called least restrictive environment. So how are we ensuring that students with disabilities spend as much time as possible in least restrictive environment? So it's a set of measures that we look at and that the team is in constant conversation around to ensure that we move more kids into the least restrictive environment. There's been some really great work around early childhood as well, in partnership with CAP and Educare around really supporting some of the needs in doing so in the student's general education classroom versus pulling kids out. A lot of just pulling kids out of the least restrictive environment was happening. So those are the kinds of metrics that the team is looking at. And again, I think the biggest thing to note is that the progress that's been made is not only in what we ultimately want to see, which are better service to schools and outcomes for our students, but also there's a lot of infrastructure that had to be built, right? What does it mean to, what measures matter? When are they being looked at? How are they being collected? Who's collecting them? How frequently are we sitting down and looking at them? What's the process for actually being prepared to look at them? What is the structure of that conversation? What action comes out of it? How are those actions monitored? It seems like stuff that's like simple and easy to do. It's actually pretty complicated and hard to do. And so there's been a lot of like building those routines with the team.
Any further questions? Dr. Decker.
One more question, thank you. So I've listened and re-listened to the public comments on this item, and I've also had discussions with current and retired employees, and there are many mentions of culture and morale and not feeling treated with respect. And there are also concerns about the new strategic direction, like billing Medicaid and providing counseling services under an IEP. And I also know that the cut last year to the bonus for nationally certified speech pathologists and school psychologists doesn't help culture either. And there's also just a statewide shortage, and there's been vacancies. And I'm just very concerned about the culture, because if employees aren't engaged and feeling part of a unified team, then they just don't tend to do their work as well as they could. And I want to share that this is very personal to me. I do have a child with a learning disability, and his behaviors are often poor, and they are due to his behaviors. And so I really care about the staff, and I value their voice, and I'm just wondering what we're going to do to improve the department's culture and morale, and also the buy-in to our strategic direction.
Absolutely. Well, so first of all, there's no question that that our team members, and I'll repeat myself a little bit here, come to work every day and they're doing what we ask of them. They're operating within a system that we are responsible for, that we've created, with the tasks that we've laid out for them, and so forth. And so when you start to make changes, that can be uncomfortable, and it is really important to bring people along. What gets sort of messy here is like figuring out which of the things that are causing morale problems are related to this work versus other things that are happening, like caseloads or other things that are problematic and very real and need to be addressed, but are part of a broader part of the work that we need to take on. And that's what I want to make sure that we're understanding. What are the concerns that are related to things that are intentional decisions that we are changing because they need to be changed, and how do we come together around why that needs to happen and how it's going to happen, versus what are some things that we understand to be problematic, like caseloads, and what do we and can we do differently related to those. And then in addition to that, I would say that when it comes to leadership and relationships and culture, I absolutely will not tolerate an environment in this district, in any department or school or otherwise, in which there is someone who is being disrespected. And so knowing that there's feedback about that, that's something we have and need to continue to tackle head on. I feel very confident that Robin Emerson and her placement into her role, which is on the agenda for tonight, is important, both because she does have a background in special education, but she's also a person who has a very strong ability to lead and build team. She has strong what do you call it, EQ. She knows how to work with people, and I think that was a big part of our enthusiasm about her interest in coming into that role, because we know that that's an area of need. And so it's work that we have to do. We know that we have concern and feedback from some really awesome people in our system who come to work every day to change the lives of kids, and we are not serving our kids well right now, but we also know that we have work to do to make sure that the members of our team have the working conditions that they need to be successful.
Dr. Gist, if I could just add as well to that, our Deputy Chief of Learning, Danielle Neves, who I would describe comparably as having great emotional intelligence, does a great job of building strong relationships with those that she leads. In Greg James's absence, as he's out on medical leave, Ms. Neves will be leaning in very heavily to support Robin Emerson, and we are still actively recruiting for a Director of Related Services. So I just want to give Danielle, if she's still here, a plug and let everyone know that she will be a big part of helping to build a stronger culture as well.
Ms. Marshall.
I wanted to also echo the words of Dr. Decker, being the aunt of an autistic child who is now an adult. We can't afford to turn our backs to this situation. And having listened to the heartfelt pleas of retirees and current employees and parents and other individuals who have echoed the sentiment that we are traveling a muddy and murky road. People are hurting, children are hurting, and we do need to do something about this situation. We need to hear the pleas, we need to hear the cries, and this is a tough situation because I can remember sitting here just some months ago when we talked about the speech pathologists, when we talked about the monies that came along, and when I can't help but wonder about the fact that I heard someone say, I believe, that we had operated in a deficit because we didn't have people in jobs because of the situation and there was a lack of money. But when we have money, but we have people that don't want to come to work because there are hostile situations, and we can't afford to have hostility meet people every day in the workplace. So I hope that we heed the cries of our employees and we understand that they want to be here and they want to help and they want to do their jobs, and that we take heed to that and that we do something about it. And we do something and it's not retaliatory in nature, because we really have to be excellent in what we do. And excellent doesn't come with a smile and another motive in mind. Thank you.
Before I call for the vote, I just wanted to clarify in the discussions that we had regarding Dr. Lewis's contract. I remember that we talked about Medicaid billing, and is it correct to say that all of the surrounding districts do Medicaid billing?
Many of the surrounding districts engage in Medicaid billing and have for a number of years. So our team is in contact with Broken Arrow, is an example of a district that is continuing to do Medicaid billing.
Thank you. With that, I'll call for the vote. Dr. Decker?
Aye.
No.
Aye. Move on